Hello, welcome to the IDM info session. My name is Matt Cressy. I'm the founding director of IDM, and I have a cold, so please accept. I hope you can get through my foggy mind and hoarse voice, but I'll do my best to make this as entertaining as possible for you. Thanks for joining. So today, just give you an overview of IDM, followed by a panel discussion with our current students so that you can ask them questions about how the program's going and their kind of intimate thoughts on the program. And that way you'll know I'm not lying, and or you might find I am. And after we'll have, you can type in questions and we'll have, I'll be able to see them here on a screen and we'll be able to answer your questions. So hopefully this will be some fun. I also redid the presentation, so this will be the first time through that. So I like to start with this slide, which shows what I think are just really great products that are currently out in the world. There's the Eames Chair. That's been around for decades. That was designed by Ray and Charles Eames, which was a pair of industrial designers. They're also husband and wife. And they just did marvelous things in terms of designing beautiful furniture, but not only that, furniture that was easy to manufacture, and they also even developed new manufacturing techniques. And so they actually were responsible for some of the first high volume composite products. In the upper right hand corner there's Bang & Olufsen. That's a great company that has really differentiated themselves using design. Pixar, obviously a super techie company that also differentiated themselves by adding emotional content to the work that they were doing. And so we started seeing computer animated movies that for the first time in our lives really moved us emotionally and brought us to tears, or at least for me, but I cry easily. Then I have the ubiquitous Macbook there, because Apple Computer does just a great job of integrated design, integrating technology, engineering, business, and design. Starbucks, they sort of redesigned this whole experience of having coffee. And then the Tesla Model S, but now they have the Model 3 and X and, all kinds of great stuff out there. And again, just a really great integration of design, business, and engineering. So obviously these things are all on the slide for a reason, and that's because they all have something in common. They all have a wonderful user experience. They all have profitable business models. Well, maybe not Tesla quite yet, but if they were at full production capacities, they would. And they all have exciting technologies. And to do this really requires a certain kind of mindset. And we felt that that wasn't really being addressed in business schools or design schools or engineering schools. We thought that we should create a program that would address this integration of sensibilities. And that's how IDM was born. Now, at MIT, we have a really strong engineering school, a really strong business school, but what was kind of missing was, a really strong design ethos, a design perspective, and the philosophy that comes with designers and artists for that matter. So that's where I come in. I have a design background, and I brought that element to MIT, and I've always had a huge appreciation for business and engineering. And working together with faculty here, we created what I think is one of the most balanced graduate programs in product design, entrepreneurship, product development that's on the planet. Another thing, obviously, is that the foundation is this kind of coupling of design plus business plus engineering. And we feel so strongly about that we balance the program not only in terms of the pedagogy, but also in terms of the faculty. So we try to have, an equal amount of faculty in design, equal number in business, equal number in engineering. And our cohorts are also equally distributed roughly across these three disciplines. So, now a design discipline could also be UI, UX, or it could be architecture, it could be graphic design. For engineering, it could be material science, it could be mech-e, it could be computer science, it could be electrical engineering, software engineering. And then business, it could be entrepreneurial, it could be in finance, it could be in economics, could be, whatever. But generally speaking, we have our cohort distributed 1/3 in each of these three general kind of buckets. Many of you have seen this Venn diagram, which we feel really exemplifies the program nicely. We have that design, engineering, and business. Design, why? Why do we have design? Because it's really responsible for making products desirable. And the emotional kind of component of our purchasing decisions is what design is really got a handle on. Business, well, all the functions that business performs are very, very important, ranging from generating capital, to distributing equity, to, creating strategies, marketing, supply chains, distribution models, so on and so forth. So you need people who are really well versed in that. Engineering is responsible for feasibility, to make sure a product doesn't fail, make sure it's repeatable, scalable, make sure it's safe. And where they all intersect, we have a little red heart. And the reason that we use a heart there instead of a star or an exclamation point or something is because what IDM is all about is not only doing this in a way that's truly integrated, but doing it in a way that involves love and compassion. And that comes through in a variety of ways. It comes through in the idea that we appreciate each other's differences. Whether you're appreciating the difference in the disciplines, as a designer, I need to appreciate business and engineering. As an engineer, you need to appreciate business and design. If you're going to do great things as an engineer, if you're not working with a designer, it's likely your product will not be as successful as an engineer who does. And so on and so forth. So we really want to emphasize that sort of sense of appreciation, which I think is a form of love. The other thing is that good things happen because we see the good in everything and everyone around us. So for example, when I twist a doorknob and it feels really good, I make a mental note about how that product felt in my hand and why. And I might, some people think I'm crazy, but I might be screwing with a doorknob for 5 minutes trying to understand, why is this doorknob so damn nice? Well, that's another form of love. And if you can see the good in products and the environment and draw from those and create sort of a mental library, it makes you very powerful as a designer, very powerful as a visionary, very powerful as a leader. So that's another reason that we have the heart there. And then the other part is that we really want our students, our alumni, to go out into the world and do beautiful things for this world. We want them to be profitable, but we don't think that profitability is exclusive to doing good for this world, doing good for other people, doing good for the earth. And so that's why we have the heart there and not a star. Here are some people that we hope to create. There's Liz Claiborne, Oprah, Anita Roderick, who started Body Shop, Steve Jobs, Ray and Charles Eames, Ratan Tata, Elon Musk. All of them have, this intuitive and innate sense about integrating the best from all disciplines. And they also, with maybe the exception, well, even Steve Jobs to a certain extent, but they all have done or are doing great things for the world. In one, whether it's, moving our transportation system to electricity and getting away from, carbon emitting vehicles to, using very healthy ingredients that are good for the earth in cosmetics and such. These people are pretty good examples of what we would like our alumni to become. Now, I know it's a tall order. I mean, I'll be frank, it's a tall order, right? I mean, the idea that our students could become this well off. Well, I've had students that have, and I think it's repeatable. And we won't know for maybe 10, 15, 20 years. But I believe that someone has to try, and that's what we're doing with IDM. So we want to create people with vision, people with passion, people with love, and we want to help them to provide skills for them that they can use to change the game in this world. And so some of the things that we do to do that is we've created this culture of design innovation. We teach the design process as an underpinning for innovation and also an underpinning for leadership. And I think that's something that we need to have more of a emphasis on in our society, is that good design process can lead to really inspired leadership. And most importantly, it can provide integrity to our leadership. So we talk a lot about that. We have an environment that I feel is very inspiring, not just IDM's ID Lab, but also the greater MIT community is a very inspiring community, just full of all kinds of vibrant activities and people all trying to do pretty much what we're trying to do. So it's very exciting. And then we have extraordinary people, from our staff to our leadership, to our students, to our speakers. Everybody that we surround ourselves, we try to make sure that they're very special, exciting people. And so here's a shot of our very humble design lab where the students work most of the time. And yep. So our students, we'll just talk about that very quickly, excuse me. So this is a 2-year master's program. It's possible to do it in 1 year. I'll talk about that in a moment. But right now we have 2 cohorts, one that has 21 students and another that has 22. We have a total of 43 students in the program. We graduated our first class in June of 15 students, which was extremely exciting. I'll show you slides of that in a moment. They have an average years of work experience of about 5 years. So we like people to have experience before they come into the program so that they have a better understanding of what we're teaching. Because a lot of things we teach are about sort of working in the real world, in the trenches, and the problems you encounter there. And so if you haven't sort of developed a thirst for that kind of answer, then our answers aren't going to, you won't have the question for our answers. So we want to make sure that happens. Average age in the program is 28. We have 63% women. We're very proud of that. And 60% of our student body is international, with 14 countries represented. And I'll read them to you real quick. So United States, India, Philippines, Hong Kong, China, Mexico, Iran, Canada, Kenya, France, Honduras, Pakistan, the UK, and Thailand. Probably missed one, but someone's out there yelling at me right now. I'm sorry. You can yell at me in class. Here are 2 options, but we really recommend the 2-year option, and that's the sort of 2 horizontal bars above. And it starts out the first semester. The fall semester, you're going to be in the IDM core curriculum, which we call ID Lab. And you'll get lots of lectures from all kinds of really cool people. And you will also practice what you're hearing about in 2 projects, which I'll talk about in a moment. Then there's IAP, which stands for Independent Activities Period here at MIT. And the IAP time is where you can take any course you want at MIT or I don't know, go travel or do whatever you want. But the idea is to sort of get outside of your kind of bubble and expose yourself to something you normally wouldn't. Then you come back for the spring semester. That's about where we are. We're about to start that this week on Wednesday. And more lectures and workshops and X-hour speakers. And then you're going to practice what you're learning on one 14-week-long project. And I'll describe that a little bit more coming up. The second year, you will be focusing on completing your required electives and writing your thesis. You can do that through IAP or not. You could not start your thesis till spring semester, although we advise you to start earlier than that. And then you would graduate in early June. Now, so we call that the 2-year option. We highly recommend that. It's the same price as the 1-year option. This costs work out to be about the same. And the 1-year option, you're basically doing all of that in 13 months. And what we found is that that's incredibly intense. We do not recommend it. All the students that arrive here within a month are like, oh my God, I can't believe I have to leave here, in under 2 years. So most people want to extend their time here, and many do. Okay. So the IDM curriculum really consists of these 3 things. ID Lab, which is 36 units, and that's a sort of idea of kind of combining design school with engineering school and business school, and focusing on integration and leadership. Okay, and we bring in lecturers from Sloan School, from the engineering school. I give a bunch of lectures. We have people coming from design disciplines, practicing engineers, practicing entrepreneurs, and we bring them all in to talk and give lectures. And also are these projects, which I'll get to in a minute. In addition to ID Lab, you need to complete your required electives for the program. We have a list of courses. It's quite a long list, so almost everyone can find something on that list. And you have to take 27 units off that list in management and 27 units off that list in engineering. And that will be really great because you will go and take a course from an MIT professor in the Sloan School or the School of Engineering, and you will really be immersed in that department and that culture, as opposed to, it'd be awful if you just went through this whole thing and only had the IDM culture. I mean, we have a great culture, don't get me wrong, but those other cultures are like rock stars on their own, so you got to go and do that. It's really an awesome thing to be able to do. And then your thesis, that's 24 units. And if you want, it can be based on a project that you're working on. So that second year of the 2-year program, sometimes we call that the incubator year, where you're maybe incubating a product or a project that you may want to turn into a business when you graduate. Your thesis could be on that project or that business or that idea, or one little portion of it. So you can combine your thesis to be about your project, which is a nice sort of economy of scale. It can make you efficient. Many of our students don't do that at all. They might have their idea that they're incubating, and then they write a thesis completely unrelated. So, but it's really completely up to you. This is our daily schedule in ID Lab. We start the day at 11:30. It's like a design school. We have a 7-hour period of time where we are all together working, talking. It's very unique to have this amount of contact time with your professors, but that's what we have in IDM, and I'm actually quite proud of that because the relationships that we have between students and between the students and me and the staff are very, very close. They're very tight, and it's just really fulfilling to have that kind of culture here. So we start 11:30 and we go for 1 hour, and we call that X hour, mainly because you don't know what you're going to get. Well, I do, but you may not. But they come from all walks of life. We could have people, coming in to talk that maybe a thought leader on domestic violence, or we could have someone who's a thought leader on integrity, or we could have a thought leader on design or business or engineering, or we could have someone who's been entrepreneurial and failed miserably, or we could have an entrepreneur who's been incredibly, lucky, or we could have an entrepreneur who, did everything by the book and it worked out really well, So we have all kinds of different people come in and speak. It's all kind of related to this theme, though, of integration and leadership, and also the idea that, life is an adventure. It's not something that you just sort of plan out and then sort of check off the boxes as you go along. That can be successful, I guess, if you have a limited perspective of success, but when you can improvise through life and you can see opportunity and adapt to take advantage of that opportunity, that's where you really see amazing things happening in life. It's also richer adventure. So that's what X Hour is all about. Lecture is more formal. Lecture is, we have very carefully curated who's speaking, what they're speaking about. It's usually something, it's in continuity throughout the semester, so it all kind of is linear and makes sense. And that's your typical kind of 90-minute business school, engineering school lecture. Design schools don't tend to have those that much, but we do that for design as well. Then we have about a 2.5-hour period of studio time where the teams will work on their projects. And I will go from team to team with the teaching staff, and we will critique your work and do little sort of design reviews with you. And that's very design schooly and fun. I enjoy those. And then finally we have workshop. That starts at, actually we've moved that up to 4:30 in the afternoon, and it ends at 6. And that's where you learn a discrete skill on how to make or create something. Another big part of the ethos of IDM is actually to make stuff, to be practical, because you can't really have an impact if the concepts that you come up with can't be rolled out and scaled up to be delivered to people to use. I think a lot of design schools, a lot of schools that do this kind of curriculum, they're only thinking about getting it to the concept phase. They might have a nice looking prototype, but beyond that, they never really understand how to bring it to market. We really focus on that sort of final stage, which is where a ton of work is. ID Lab, these are some of the activities we have going on. It sort of acts as our team headquarters. It's a maker space. It's a place where we do design workshops. We have those guest lectures. We do user-centered research. And then the faculty lectures. So this is a slide. These slides will be available later if you want to review them. I won't go through this in too much detail. Now the projects. So we have 3 projects in the 2 years that we kind of curate with you. The first one is focused on understanding deep user needs and emotions. The second one is really focused on manufacturing a product and selling it. And the third one is about really developing a product to be manufactured by a contract manufacturer. And so these are all sort of things what I've determined as where most design firms fall short. So if you went to a design firm, even a really great design firm, they may not be really good at creating a product that can be manufactured, or they may not be really good at driving sales and understanding sell-through. So we try to focus on that. Because at the end of the day, no matter who you work for, if it's your own company or whatever, you gotta sell product, and that product has to be desirable, and it has to be good for the earth and good for society. So we really want that to to resonate with the students. The projects for that third project, that product development and contract manufacturing, they're either student generated or they're sponsored by industry. And they can be three-dimensional products, hardware, but they could also be software. It could be a social instrument or a financial instrument. It doesn't have to be, tangible. It can be a system. So we're very open to that. But a solution to a societal problem, that would be a great product. So we're very open to all kinds of mediums for that. Our program sponsors, they tend to be fairly intimate, with that sponsor. And we like them to have ongoing involvement with the program, and they'll come to class now and then, and they might invite the student team to come to their headquarters and see how they do things. All intellectual property for sponsored projects belongs to the students. And at the end of the semester, the students can give a right of first offer, are required to give right of first offer to the sponsor to see if the sponsor is interested in purchasing it from the students. So here's some examples of some of these projects. So the first project, this is one that Susie, who's sitting there third from the left, she went and wanted to understand what it is to be homeless and some of the needs of homeless people. So here she is, in the trenches, really learning the needs and emotions of homeless people because she goes out and spends time with them, as opposed to how it's usually done, which is you do a bunch of web research, right? And that's just not cool. That is not the way to do this type of research. If you really want to create meaningful products for people, you need to go and talk to them and be with them, even if you're a little nervous about that. And so Susie, showed incredible courage and passion to do what needed to be done to get the answers. So this is where she was, out on the streets. And she really got a great understanding of what this life was. I won't continue with this presentation of what she gave, but these are some of the things that she witnessed. The second project, and by the way, that first project will base, the final deliverable is a beautiful presentation that not only discovers the needs and emotions, but also communicates those needs and emotions to the audience in a way that transfers the empathy that like Susie discovered. Susie developed empathy for these people, and now it transfers to us, the audience. If you can transfer that empathy, then you're going to be very effective at leading projects, at leading companies, at being persuasive to steer projects in a direction that matters. So that's why we focus so heavily on this. This is the way that you lead with integrity, is by connecting with the constituents and really understanding their needs and emotions, and then advocating for those and transferring their needs and emotions in a way that builds empathy in others. So project 2, all about sales and manufacturing. So we actually have students manufacture 50 units of their products, and then they have to sell them at a sales gala. In this case, this is a student team from the fall, and they created a planter that has a little window that changes color depending on the hydration of the soil. And that's Melody, Nava, and Dextina. And this is the sales gala, and we set up, everyone sets up tables, and they have 50 units to sell. And so this is a trivet, where you can put hot plates down or whatever on your counter so it prevents burning. And they're set up, everyone's set up to sell 50 units. They have, they're set up with Square accounts, and they've made 50 units, and they all usually sell out and make a pretty good profit. And this is sort of a aerial view looking down at many of the tables and the class. That's actually a year ago. That's a very fun and exciting project. And then project 3, I just have a slide. So project 3, you end up with a prototype, which is hard to see here. I don't know if this works, but yeah. Well, there's right there is a example of a product and a product experience. And so this team is presenting, and Michael Davies right here is, who's one of our faculty, is making some comments on that, and this is sort of a formal final presentation. That's the final deliverable for Project 3. And so the products, though, have to be brought to much higher resolution, suitable for kind of handing off to a manufacturer to be manufactured. And we try not to do this in a vacuum. So, this is Brian Matt, who's the CEO and founder of Altitude, which is now part of Accenture. And Brian and Accenture and many other kind of thought leaders in the area work closely with us to constantly help us stay on the cutting edge so that what we're teaching has relevance to what they're practicing. And so, we are incredibly grateful to people like Brian for all of their help and advice. Upon graduation, we have a very special ceremony for IDM students where we charter a boat and we go out into Boston Harbor and we say a few nice words and sort of celebrate in the IDM way what a special group of people that they are and how we are so excited about what they're going to do after they leave us. It's a little sad, but it's also super exciting. This was our first one, it was the first class I personally have ever graduated in my life. Not many people have graduated a class, but we did, and what an amazing moment that was. And here's our graduating class in the bow of the boat. So, admissions. So I think probably many of you know all applicants are required to submit a portfolio, so that's a little bit daunting for some. I'll talk about that in a second. Finalists, after we've sort of reviewed applications, we're going to cull them down to finalists, and those finalists will be required to attend an in-person interview. If not in person, we can do a phone or web-based interview. And our admissions deadline is in, I think, 2 weeks, and that's February 15th, a little less than 2 weeks from now. With regards to the portfolio, so I think the design applicants, they probably already have portfolios, so there's no need to really talk about them. We have requirements on the admissions site that you will use to kind of do all your submissions, so you can refer to those. But engineers, for you guys and gals, I recommend that you, talk about, take 6 or 8 slides and talk about a project you're really proud of, the process in which you, what you use to come to a final solution that you really think is wonderful. Explain what the benefits of that solution are. And, we are, like I said, we're really good at appreciating things. So it could be just this really amazing kinematic motion. That's great. We'll love it. We'll get that. We will appreciate that, okay? It could be, some new molecule you created that, creates less friction as a lubricant or whatever. We will appreciate that. We don't worry about that, okay? It doesn't have to be visual. It just has to get very concisely across the innovation that occurred and the benefit that came out of it, okay? That's what we want to see. And then if you have 3, 4, 5, 6 more slides that show just one slide each of other projects that you've worked on that you're proud of, that's great, okay? So that's engineering. Business, very similar, 6 to 8 slides on a project you worked on with some sort of result. And again, we can appreciate a business model. We can appreciate a cash flow projection. We can appreciate all kinds of things. You could have created a microfinancing platform. We'll appreciate it, okay? So don't worry about it, but Tell a story with a result, okay? And then 4, 5, 6 slides of other projects that you're proud of, but just 1 page per project, okay? And you can keep this simple, okay? You don't have to go crazy and get super detailed. Sometimes less information is better because it steers us to pay attention to the stuff that matters, as opposed to being distracted with stuff that doesn't really matter, but you feel it's important for some reason. So keep it simple. All right. And finally, this is our mission, to enable the learning and development of extraordinary, innovative leaders that will bring new levels of creativity, vision, and integrity to business and society. And if that resonates with you, which I hope it does, we'd love to talk to you. So that's it. Thank you very much. So we're going to just have a brief pause here while we collect some questions and bring in some students to help answer those questions. Keep me honest.
Make us all sick now.
I know. Well, I got it from someone else, all right? So don't blame me. I got it from Steve Eppinger, so let's blame him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do that.
Mics are muted, right, Steve? I mean, Derek? Okay. Welcome back. So I'd like to introduce you to 2 current IDM students. So this is Jen.
Hi.
And Anubhav.
Hi.
And so we're going to answer some questions for you, or they are. And so here's the first question right here. Actually, do you guys want to why don't you just introduce yourselves? Talk about maybe why you're here. How's that sound?
That sounds good.
If you still know.
And why I'm here?
Yeah.
Well.
Uh-oh.
I'm here. So I guess maybe a bit of history for me. I'm Jen, and before I came here, I was a user experience designer for 5 years, and before that, I did industrial engineering at the University of Toronto, and throughout that entire time, I was really passionate about designing things for people, and so after I got out of engineering, I did user experience design because that means I got to understand people more and make things for them. And after doing that for a little bit, I realized that design can't, nothing can become real if design doesn't work with the engineers, the developers who are going to make the things that I'm designing, and that won't work if we don't all talk to the business people and see what they want and how they want to do things. And so I was just really passionate about that, the combination of these 3 different things, and on top of that, I kind of wanted to go away from defining the medium by which I solve things, because I was a user experience designer, so everything I did was for the web. So anytime a client came up to us and said, we have this problem, our solution is always, we can make some ad hoc software for you. And I've kind of realized that that's probably being constrained by the medium wasn't something that I enjoyed, and I really wanted to solve problems that went beyond the screen. So when I found out, when one of my friends introduced me to IDM, I just thought that this was the perfect fit.
You thought it was a perfect fit.
Oh, now I know.
All right, there we go.
Great. So my name is Anubhav. I'm from India, and I guess I'll also start with a brief background about where I come from. So I have a background in chemical engineering, and I graduated back in 2010, post which I have broadly 7 years of experience in the healthcare sector, 2 of which were in the management consulting industry, and then a year post that I worked as a legislative fellow with a member of Parliament of India, which really introduced me to the social sector and the development sector and inspired me to start something of my own. And then back in 2013, I joined 4 Stanford students to start a non-profit in South India called Noora Health, which has been the most important and the most exciting part of my experience. And we did that for 4 years, and it's still doing really well. And we built that organization from a very human-centered design approach. And last year, we were at this stage where we had started partnering with the government to scale the program up. And we had hired a bunch of people who were much more experienced than me. And I thought it was the right time for me to take a step back and learn, like combine the human-centered design approach with the systems thinking approach, and learn more about design and business and engineering. And I think IDM was the perfect program for exploring those interests and just taking a step back and reflecting what I want to do next.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's our first question. Outside of the lectures, labs, what are the students' schedules like? Go for it.
Sure. I think it really depends what you want to do and what you're involved in. So, for example, last semester, students were involved in hosting events. You could be part of the healthcare lab, because I come from the healthcare background, or you could be part of the design lab. You could help host hackathons, and you could help host maker events and maker studios, or you could be involved in a research projects with the multiple labs that we have at MIT, or you could be involved as a TA to a professor. So I think there are a bunch of things that you could do.
Yeah, that sounds like a comprehensive answer. I guess I can talk a little bit about what I did during the last month. So at MIT, we have something called IAP, and it's a full month where you get off and you can either take classes here or you can do whatever you want. So for me, I went to Jordan and with the media lab. So they had an accelerator called the Refugee Learning Accelerator. So they got people who are interested in solving problems for refugees in the Arab world, and they got them all together in Amman, Jordan, and then I was a mentor in the user experience for that. So I did that for a week. So it's really nice to be working with people that are really passionate about their communities and making it better and teaching them a user-centered approach to doing that.
Wow. Okay. We need to talk more about that. I want to hear about it. All right, great. So, okay, so here's another question. Hopefully that answered that first question. As a designer, I believe the process is holy grail, but working in a multidisciplinary team, I don't see the same buy-in from everyone else, business and engineering. How does the IDM program address this? Do you guys want to take that one, or do you want me to take that one? That's a tough one. It's a great question.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, this is the type of question that only people in the trenches tend to have. Okay, go.
Oh, well, I mean...
No, go for it.
From my own working experience, I think I know that is true, and I know that a lot of designers, we take very user-centered approach, and then we get pushed back a lot of times in the business and the engineering people going, but where's the money that's going to come from? Or the engineering folks go, how am I expected to make this? And what I've really found is that So because the IDM program is really split into thirds, so a third of us are designers, a third of us are engineers, and a third of us are business people, and most of us actually straddle more than one realm. And so I think what's great about this IDM program is that we get people from different expertise who have bought in to the fact that we need to be multidisciplinary, we can learn from each other, and we need to do things together. And from my own working experience, I know that when we can get everybody in the room that is excited about this, that want, or at least want to try it once, and we get that going, it seems to work really, really well. And I think for me personally, just being amongst these people like Anubhav, who've done so much work in healthcare, or like some girl in our class is an art director from BBDO, so like just a lot of different disciplines, to be able to work together and figure out what's the best way forward and what's the best way to design something, and then seeing how that works out. I think that's how IDM really pushes my boundaries in terms of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Working
Great.
together.
And I think just to add to that perspective, I come from a business background, so I think you do get sometimes pushback from the business people and the engineers in the team, but we also look at the perspectives coming from the designers as a pushback as well. And so I think for me, I look at this situation as not understanding the different perspectives of the different people in the room. And I think being in this program, because of the fact that we are working so closely with one another, it allows us to understand those different perspectives. So for example, last semester, we were part of the Sales Scala project, and each team had a designer, a business person, and an engineer. And the objective, the end goal of the project was to manufacture 50 things and sell those 50 things. And just the process of coming up with a product and then thinking about the manufacturing process, thinking about pricing, we had these different opinions. And just to understand where the designers were coming from, where the engineers were coming from, I think that trains you well for a real life situation, I guess.
Yeah, that's great. So I just add to that, both of what you guys said is very true. We try to create an environment where a lot of that is learned through practice. By putting you in an environment with various disciplines, you're forced to kind of explain to the other disciplines why what you're saying is important from your particular discipline's perspective. You're doing that in an environment where you know that you're encouraged to do that, whereas maybe the environment you're in, there is no encouragement to do that, right? There isn't this sort of expectation that design should be appreciated, right? And it can happen, you could be in a design organization where the engineer, where you're not appreciated, right? So here all is appreciated so that you can practice communicating what's important. And the other thing is that we try to teach, so one of the things that really holds back the ability of a designer in particular to persuade others to see the value of their work is that they usually lack the vocabulary of engineering or business. Now, engineering and business, they spend a lot of time developing a vocabulary, right? Like a real vocabulary, one you speak, right? Designers develop a visual vocabulary. They're both powerful, but the world kind of works around verbal vocabularies. And then there's numerical or cash or profitable vocabularies, right? So we try to teach everyone each other's language. That way, you can go with to someone and say, this design and these sort of features that you're saying make it complicated are very important, and here's why they hit the bottom line. And you can show them a cash flow projection that says, this will make more money for the company. And you can say it will be repeatable because of these manufacturing processes that I have had experience with. So anyway, that was a really good question, and we spent way too much time on it. All right, so next question. What kind of candidates are you guys looking for? Specifically, what do you look for in business entrepreneur background applicants? Well, would you guys like to try taking a stab at that one?
I wasn't a business person. I didn't apply as a business person.
I know, but you might have an idea.
What did you look for in me, Matt?
Yeah. Oh, now all the secrets come out.
We are on a couch. I get a little therapy, you know. Yeah. Let's see. So what are we looking for? So we're looking for people. So first and foremost, sort of epic people who have sort of epic adventures. So if you had a business experience or an entrepreneurial experience that was very, very difficult, and you could have crashed and burned, or you could have been successful. We don't really care about that. We want to know what your appetite is for that adventure, right? Because having that appetite and then sort of the drive to like push it through to either failure or success, that's what's going to ultimately be a success. So that's what we're looking for. I try to be a little careful about answering these questions, by the way, because then it becomes a recipe for everyone to use to apply. So. But I think another thing we're looking for is people that are have big hearts, and I'll just leave it at that. So and both of you, to answer your question, that's what I saw in you. Yeah. So all right, next question. How many years of work experience are you looking for when you say early to mid-career, and also does the experience have to be in design, business, or engineering? So the number of years ranges here from 2 at the smallest, at the the shortest, to let's see, 24 years. So that gives you an idea of the range. So 2 to 24 years of experience so far. We've had actually less, but I'd prefer not to go lower than 2. But again, those 2 years have to be epic. Let's see. So that's what we mean by early to mid-career. Also, does the experience have to be in design business? So no, it doesn't. So we have biologists. Who else have we had that doesn't fit the buckets?
Architects?
We put them in the design bucket.
That's true.
But I mean, the biologists we'd put in the engineering bucket. So. The short answer is no, it doesn't have to be in design, business, or engineering, but most likely we're going to place you in one of those 3 categories. Okay. Next question. The examples shown are mainly consumer products. Can students work on product systems that are more complex and high-tech in nature? E.g., wind turbine, automotive, unmanned aerial vehicle, etc. Yes, of course. Yeah, that'd be fine. Depending on, I think if you're getting into really complex, large systems, then you might want to consider our sister program, SDM. But because we teach the human-centered design process, and that has incredible value to designing systems. But if your goal or dream in life is to design maybe radar systems, then we'd probably push you to SDM, or you might be more attracted to SDM. Do you guys have any thoughts on this? No. Okay.
I mean, there is access to the labs at MIT, so if you wanted to work, you could work.
Yeah.
In large systems and
right.
complex product design as well.
Yeah.
And there are classes on that as well. So.
Yep. So you can definitely get that in our program. The question is, if you really just want to do that, something very focused, where you're not doing where your products are not going to get a lot of exposure to human beings, then you may want to consider a different program here. But if it's all about kind of contributing to the human experience, then I think IDM is probably the right place. All right, last question. How is the work-life balance of students? All right, so that's definitely for you guys.
Yeah, I can start off. It is really as you make it, I think. Even within the projects themselves, I mean, in our last project, as Anubhav talked about the manufacturing one, it's as much work or as little work as you want it to be, but obviously it has to be viable and it has to actually sell and all that stuff. we have like Mondays. I'm sure Matt covered this already, but Mondays and Wednesdays are our lab days for first years, and then you take classes on the other days. You can be listeners in classes if you want, so you can add to your workload or not, and you can also participate on the 1,000,001 things happening at MIT. So really, like, the work-life balance is as you make it, and as you think is healthy for you or is productive for you. I know there's somebody that was like last year was in 5 startups and whatnot, and there are people that do less. So really, just whatever you want to make of it.
Yeah, totally agree with what Jen said. I think just to add, to what you said would be, I see the utility of the program is that it's very flexible, and you should know what you want to do, and the program and the larger MIT ecosystem will have what you need to achieve what you want. So there is access to whatever you want. So I think it's just like going out there and getting it, and creating the right balance for you, I guess. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and I'd say that there are more opportunities here to be involved with than is healthy for you.
Yes.
So,
That's true.
yeah. So I think one of the most important things you can do here is to exercise some discipline in how many of those opportunities you choose to include in your life. And so I think I went through a learning curve with our first couple of cohorts about that. Now I advise, take it easy, and just focus on quality, maybe just 2 or 3 opportunities in addition to your workload, and then keep the quality high. So, okay, so that's all for now. Thank you so much. Any questions, you can reach me or our admissions crew at, idm.mit.edu, and have a great day.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.